Hello and good evening on a very lovely evening here. This is the final video on the planting out series of dahlias, and the final step is staking. So far in the previous videos, which you can find in the playlist that will be at the end of this video, we've planted them into pots, we've taken free cuttings, we have pinched them out, planted them out, and now we are staking them. So you might ask why we want to do this. Let me show you what happened to other plants that I've got that I forgot to stake. Staking is always considered never that urgent until it is. And look what's happened here. These cornflowers, which self-seeded, were absolutely fine maybe a day ago, and then they've just collapsed overnight. So everything is strewn all over and they've just collapsed. Now, this isn't so bad on this particular area because it's not covering any additional plants. However, if we look a bit closer over here, we'll see that this branch of the cornflower is overtaking the sweet williams. So in reality, it's starting to hinder the progress of the plant that's next to it. And that's not all. If we take a quick look at the sweet rocket, which has been collapsed for a few days, if not longer now, then you'll notice that the growth, it's still continued to grow. So this particular stem has fallen flat, but the side shoots for the flowers have still continued to grow. So in reality, if I lift this up, so if you can take a look at that, so actually, unless you want really short stems that you cut here, then you can't get a long straight stem once the plant has collapsed like this. If we look at a stem that is still upright, then all of these are facing the way that you would want to cut them, and they would stand upright in a vase. So they're much more easier to use in an arrangement. But the stems that are curving upwards are really tricky to use. So that is a good example of why you'd want to stake them. So the same is true with dahlias. Dahlias can grow into quite big plants, and this is the problem with all of the tall plants that you can grow. They have a tendency to collapse on themselves. So you only need a slight bit of wind or a bit of heavy rain, and when they are full, when they're tall and full of flower, then the weight of those stems causes them to collapse. And that's the same with dahlias. They have long, hollow stems and therefore are easy to snap. So what we don't want to do is put in all of this work to get the dahlias growing and then have them collapse on us before we're ready to pick them. So what we need to do is stake them. Now, there are many different ways that you can stake them. So this is just my preference at the moment. So I've gone for what is cheap and easy, but you can create all sorts of structures that would do the job. So you could use purpose-built wooden frames that you could use. I've seen using, I'm not sure what it's called, but farm wire. So it's got quite a wide square on it, so like a pea netting size shape, so 6 by 6 inches gaps I've seen those being used as circles, like a barrel around each plant. I've seen that being put across more sturdy stakes and building the structure that way. I've even used pea netting, but the pea netting that I've used, it's the thin plastic netting. You can get twine netting, which may be useful, but it's also quite expensive. So the plastic netting that I've used actually was quite difficult to manage. So I'm using bamboo sticks as my stakes. Again, ideally, and over time I'll replace them with more sturdier stakes. So I'm hoping to be able to get some metal stakes, so they'll just be easier to push into the ground. But I haven't got there. I had planned to do it before I needed this at this point. I haven't done it, so I'm reusing the bamboo stakes that I had. But as I say, with the pea netting, whilst the plants grow up through it, it was really difficult to harvest the blooms through it. It was thin and sharp. If you pulled it too tight, it was quite difficult to get in. It was then difficult to disentangle it when you needed to replace the plants or take them out. It was just a chore. So what I used last year for the dahlias was twine. So it's the bamboo stakes, and I have put into the ground every 2 foot probably a stake. So every 2 plants, in the way that I've spaced it out here, I've put a stake. It probably doesn't need to be as tall as this, but this is just where it came to and the size of the stakes that I had. And I then just weave the twine around so that it creates a structure. So let me show you what I've done on other cutting flowers that will show you what I'm aiming for, and then I'll show you how to do it, how I've done it for the dahlias. So here I have some flowers growing through the weed membrane. I have the stakes, as you can see, and I've created a crisscross structure, essentially creating 4 triangles within a frame of the bamboo stakes. So it's not a tight structure, but I'm hoping that all of the flowers will grow up within this structure, and that should be fine. Now, it may be that some of these flowers some of these flowers might be taller. Certainly the straw flowers will end up being taller, and I can put another circle of twine. Circle's not the right word, but another layer of twine higher up as and when needed. So I want something to support it lower down, so it's giving them some structure to grow through. But then I want it to, if I need certain plants need further support higher up, I can do that as well. And that's what I plan to do with the dahlias. I will have it low down to start with. So let me swoop over to this side. I will have the twine low down, maybe a foot off the ground to start with, and then if required I will put in another layer of twine another foot up above from that. Depends how high they grow. So if you can see, I have the stakes in place, pushed deep into the ground so that it gives them a bit of support and strength. And then I'm just going to wind the twine, in this case bright blue twine, so it's easy to see on the video. I will be winding it round in a general, to form triangles throughout the bed. What I've found is easiest is if I go round all of the edges, so I'm creating a firm structure, so go round and then just zigzag through randomly. It doesn't need to be perfect, it doesn't matter what shapes I do, it just needs to have something there to create some support. So let's get started. So there we have it, a crisscross of twine quite low down on the stakes so that it captures and supports any growth early on in their life, and depending on how tall any of the plants grow, I can then add to it as time goes on. But at the moment none of them are really hitting the height, so it's about maybe a foot, just shy of a foot off the soiled height, but eventually they'll all grow out and fill that space, and so should all be well supported to stop any damage to the plants as they grow. So that's all there is to do with the dahlias at this point in time. Once you've planted them out and staked, then it's just a matter of giving them time to grow and flower. And once we've got the first blooms, I'll do a video on how to harvest them to get the best stem length for your floral arrangements. But until that time, happy growing.